What's up, guys, and welcome to an F1 2017 game review today. So you may have seen a few of these online, but yeah, this is going to be slightly different. It's going to be more of a podcast format. So if any of you guys have seen sort of previous podcasts, it's going to sort of follow that similar format. If I remember, I will put some timestamps down in the comments or the description to sort of, you know, indicate as to what we're going to talk about. So we're going to be covering career mode, handling, AI, online, and the eSports in general. And alongside myself today, I have got Matt once again, as I tend to for all the podcasts. And yeah, how are you doing, Matt?
Yes, I'm not too bad. You must be getting fed up with me by now. Although to be fair, we haven't done a podcast in quite a long time, so
we haven't.
I think that's enough of a break from seeing me again. So yeah, F1 2017 so far, I've enjoyed it, but I do also have some negative points as well. So it's going to be a very balanced argument, this one, for sure. Yeah,
I'm thinking of titling this an honest review because we've both sort of discussed it over Twitter sort of in the last couple of weeks. We're both really enjoying the game, but of course we do want it to be better in the future. So we're going to be you know, criticising it as well where we feel necessary. So I think we should get straight into everybody's favourite mode, I think, like the go-to mode in the game, which is, of course, career mode, yes. And talking about what they've improved and also what they could do better. So, obviously, for you guys that haven't played the game, basically the career mode this year is a lot more R&D focused. Obviously, you have the research and development tree where it's split into 4 sections. So you've got the general sort of like reliability where you can improve like the gearbox, engine components, that sort of thing, and then you've got like the 3 main branches, which are the chassis, the powertrain, and the aerodynamics. So you can choose basically which branch to go down, and depending on what car you've got, improve that. So Matt, are you a big fan of the development tree, or do you think it's maybe a little bit too complicated?
When I first heard the news of the R&D tree, I thought it would be way too complicated for the casual player. But as I've delved more into it, I don't think it's as complicated as what it first seems. Certainly, you know, the R&D, the development. I mean, in my career, I'm currently up to Baku, and I haven't really, despite all the upgrades, I haven't made much of a step forward in my Toro Rosso. Although I'm focusing more on aerodynamics than the engine. And that's one negative point I'm going to say already. The powertrain, the engine in my Toro Rosso, in theory, it's the 3rd slowest, but in the races so far, it has not felt that way at all. So something that possibly needs to be looked into. But the R&D development definitely adds longevity to the game, but I'm not sure if it's something that will attract a casual player to play F1 2017 beyond a month, let's say.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And also the little point that you made on the powertrain, I've got to completely agree with that. Obviously, I'm doing it in the Haas. Which, yeah, has a Ferrari engine, which in theory is the 2nd fastest, but I've had situations where I'm outdoing a Mercedes engine where the Mercedes car has DRS, I don't, and I'm still, you know, faster than it. So yeah, I think that's something that probably needs to be looked into a little bit. But I guess it's better than having it the other way, where it's just, you know, every single engine is like breezing past you, even if you've got the Mercedes. So yeah, that would just not be enjoyable. So I suppose it's better to have it the other way. But yeah, would like it sort of balanced, I guess you could say. Yeah, in terms of the tree itself, I have to completely agree with you as well, in the sense that I thought it would be way too complicated. But when you actually delve into it, there is literally just 4 branches, and it doesn't really matter what upgrade you pick in terms of like the aerodynamics or chassis or whatever. There's not really too many options. So yeah, I do like that, and it's a little bit less overpowered than especially last year.
Oh yeah, yeah. As I mentioned with the Toro Rosso, I mean, I've literally made no progress whatsoever, despite putting loads of aerodynamic upgrades on the car. I think I'm still, at the moment, if anything, I think I've actually dropped below Renault. Right. So that kind of shows that you're going to really have to grind it out, all this, you know, research and development points, and really have to use them wisely and save them up where necessary, because it's going to take a few seasons really for you to make any proper progress, unlike last year where you could take a man to the top within a season or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, so it's a lot better in that sense. And yeah, so that pretty much covers, I think, the R&D tree, which I guess you could say it's probably the main addition to career mode this year. But also, one thing that I really like that they added this year is the ability to change the engine components and the gearbox. Now, it's been a good addition, but again, I think probably needs a little bit more refining for next year. Matt, I'd like to hear your experiences with the gearbox and the engine over the course of the season so far.
Well, just to point out first, I'm by far the most, scruffy driver there is. I don't really like to take care of the engine and the gearbox. I do like to sort of just go flat out. I have started to, look after the engine and the gearbox a little bit more, but I will honestly say to an extent the wear is a little bit scripted, because from what I've noticed from people's career mode videos, the engines seem to wear out at different times despite, how much you conserve them. For example, my engine, I had to change all my components, I think after China, they're already in the yellow, and you've got to be very careful about when you use these engine components. For example, now I'm up to Baku, and there is absolutely no way I'm getting to the end of the season with, the 4 engine components that are allowed. I'm already onto my 3rd ICE, internal combustion engine.
Right.
Definitely going to have to move on to a 5th by the time we get to around Singapore. It's just, it is a bit over the top. I suppose at the same time it is realistic. But at the same time, if I was Codemasters, I would tune it down just ever so slightly. But the engine wear itself, I had to drive in Monaco with a 78% more on ICE, and I cannot begin to tell you how grueling that race was. I was so slow in a straight line. Thankfully, it was only Monaco, but still, I finished 4th. Don't ask me how. It was the most undeserved P4 ever. But the 3 guys that finished ahead of me, I think it was Bottas, Raikkonen, and Perez, and all 3 of them lapped me in a 50% race. And the thing is, there was no AI even challenging behind, because they're all just so bad. I'm not sure if everyone else is suffering engine wear as well, but I think that's another point I want to bring up, is that the AI also do seem to suffer from engine wear, gearbox wear, even tyre wear, the same amount as you do, which was a huge problem in the previous F1 games. It just seemed to be you that was suffering, and the AI just seemed to always benefit from that all the time. But certainly this year, for example, in that same Monaco race, I qualified, I think, in P15, and they ended up starting P5 on the grid. I didn't have a penalty, but all of the AI cars had grid penalties, engine penalties, and yeah, it's basically realistic to real life if you obviously watch the Italian Grand Prix on Sunday.
yeah, I had exactly the same in Monaco. I think there seems to be definitely Monaco, and from what I've seen, people getting later into the career modes, Brazil as well, the 2 circuits which really sort of emphasise the grid penalties. So for myself in Monaco, this will go out after my Monaco career race, so I can talk about it. It's fine. If you haven't watched it, do go and do so. But yeah, in Monaco, I qualified 15th or 16th, and I put it on record. Went out the room to get a drink, just let the cutscene play, and went to sit down to start the race, and I was starting in P5. So I was like, what has gone on here? So I looked back at the recording, and sure enough, the whole grid had basically got grid penalties, and I had and what also seems to be the case, I don't know, it doesn't specify obviously how many places each car has taken, but it almost seems to sort of give the penalties in reverse. So it did it for myself, and from what I saw in Ara's video as well, it did exactly the same. The first drivers to have had penalties on the grid are the Saubers, which is really strange because they're the ones that tend to obviously qualify at the back. And then at the back, you've got the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari. So, yeah, that's a little bit strange. Again, possibly something that needs to be looked into. Just be the case.
Yeah, I can't remember specifically what order the penalties were in my Monaco race, but I think overall, just touching on the engine gearbox, where again, it's good to see that it does genuinely have an effect on you, these sort of things, because we saw in previous games these sort of things were apparently would affect you, but realistically it was very easy to handle. But this year you've got to look after the engine and gearbox incredibly well, by sort of short shifting, lifting and coasting through the corners. Also something that I've suffered quite a lot, I think in Russia was the main one. My gearbox, as soon as it gets above 50% wear, you start to have problems with losing gears. I lost 2nd and 7th gear in that race. It was, well, thankfully it was only for a few laps, but still, it's very difficult to manage that. And especially, I mean, Russia's not such a bad track because you could probably handle most corners through 3rd gear, but jumping from 6th to 8th just loses you so much time in a straight line.
Yeah. Yeah, it is good, though, that they sort of put those sort of things in. I mean, I lost 3rd around Russia, so obviously you've got people losing different gears. And it's good that sort of engine and gearbox wear isn't sort of like a placebo almost. And obviously, like in previous years, like the one that springs to mind for me is F1 2013, where the tyre, obviously we had the excessive tyre wear, and that was just like completely scripted. Whereas this year it seems to be just a little bit different for everyone, which is good. But yeah, as you said, probably needs a little bit of working on, and it would be good also to see maybe different AI, like some of the AI taking penalties in different races. Whereas at the moment, in both of our experiences and other people's as well, all the AI tend to take penalties in a certain race, which is a little bit unrealistic. That is
an annoyance of mine, really. It's just it's almost like OCD, really. You just why are they having the same penalties in the same race? You know, just spread them out a little bit. It can't be that hard to program, really. So you know, just one thing that needs to be worked on is that, certainly.
Yeah, so that covers, I think, the main 2 things in career mode. Is there anything else you can think of that you've maybe enjoyed or can think that maybe needs a little bit more work in career mode?
I mean, we're going to talk about the AI a bit later, so that will all be, you know, discussed in due course. One thing I want to talk about, a couple of points. First off, are the classic events, invitation events, whatever you want to call them, that have been implemented into career mode this year. And to be honest, they're challenging. They are kind of fun. But to be honest, to be brutally honest, they are almost a little bit pointless because
they're unnecessary. Yeah,
it adds to anything. It adds to your career score, but it doesn't influence anything. And there's no depth to these events either. Like there's no sort of cutscene beforehand. There's no story to them. You get the guy talking to you, Jonathan, whatever his name is, and realistically, like I said, like, there's no other way to describe it. Really, it's a bit pointless. It's just a bit plain bare. There's nothing to them.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised when they sort of added that to the career mode, in the sense that like you can't really sort of add a story to, you know, just jumping in at a classic car, and also the thing with them is, like I think was it after Russia? I think after Russia I got an offer to drive in Brazil, like just the complete other side of the world. Whereas I think it'd be maybe a little bit more realistic if, say, after a race, if you say have a good result or whatever, then, you know, he comes over to you and say, oh, you know, do you want to stay behind for like an extra day and you know, do it round that specific circuit. Whereas, you know, when you're jetting off the other side of the world, that's just like completely unrealistic, like a week before the next Grand Prix. So
yeah, it's just those little things, really, just to make these game modes have a little bit more purpose, I suppose. Because, you know, going over to Brazil, Austria, all the way from Russia, when, you know, Brazil is on the other side of the calendar, literally at the opposite end, and at the opposite side of the world as well. It just doesn't seem to add up, really. Yeah, that's all I really had to say about the classic events. I have noticed that people aren't really including them in their videos on YouTube at all, because there is just nothing to them, really.
Yeah.
And that's the fear that I had right to begin with, just a lack of depth overall. But another point I wanted to bring up was obviously in career mode now, the setting is a little bit different with the agent room, the R&D room.
Yeah.
A good additions, and also a change-up of menu locations as well. So I think once you get into, I think it's practice, you're sort of inside the hospitality unit. After qualifying on the race, I think you're on the balcony.
Yeah.
Again, all these, you know, variances in menu locations are good. Just avoid repetitiveness. I still do feel overall there is something lacking with the immersion in career mode. I still think there needs to be not necessarily interviews or press conferences, because I can see why people found them annoying to begin with, because the questions can be a bit repetitive. You know, what I want is to be able to sort of, I suppose, I honestly, I wanted to avoid this, but I'm going to compare it to FIFA again. The journey, where basically you can select different, you know, answers to give to questions, and it will have an impact on your relationship with managers, teammates, and also fellow drivers throughout the field. That's what I want from career mode, for there to be more of a storyline and for the relationships within the career mode to actually become more prominent, rather than just having a rivalry which is just appears on the laptop. There's nothing really to it. It doesn't affect your relationship with that driver. It's just how you're performing with them, on track. There needs to be some more additions off track to kind of make the career mode take it to that next level, I suppose. But I'm not really expecting that right, for example, next year. I'd say definitely a future edition for Codemasters is certainly that, just to, increase the immersion even more, take to that next level.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would like that sort of, like the interviews, but also creating an actual rivalry, rather than literally just like your agent coming up to you and saying, oh, yeah, by the way, here's your rival. Like, literally. Also with myself, like, I've got given Jolyon Palmer as my rival. Literally, I haven't had a single on-track battle with that comes to mind. Whereas all season I've been battling with like the Force Indias, the Williams, those sort of drivers, and then all of a sudden she just goes, oh yeah, by the way, your new rival is Jolyon Palmer. So that was a bit random, it has to be said. So yeah, but. Can you think of anything else maybe that you want added to career mode, just, let's say next year or at least in future years?
I mean, the main thing, like I said, is just to take that immersion to the next level, perhaps add interviews, press conferences. I'm happy with the practice program, track acclimatization. I think the two new ones they've had this year, fuel saving and the race strategy. The fuel saving one is quite difficult, but it sort of depends on the track, really. And you just need to be very, very careful. And I think it does also depend on the AI difficulty as well. The time is obviously a little bit slower if you have the difficulty lower. But overall, I wouldn't say there's anything that stands out to me right now other than just more immersion and just more to the career mode. More of a storyline, I suppose. That's really it for me.
Yeah. I've got to agree with you also on the practice programs. I think they've reached a really good balance now.
Yeah.
In the sense, it does actually sort of prepare you for the race weekend, which is obviously in real life F1 what practice is all about. So you've got the qualifying program, which obviously prepares you for qualifying, and then in the race you've obviously got to take care of your tyres, your fuel, acclimatise to the track first of all, which is obviously essential, and the race strategy one is just good to sort of get a few laps in uninterrupted, but it also has a purpose to it as well. It gives you resource points, and there's actually a reason to play it. So yeah, I wouldn't touch that for next year. Only other thing that we haven't mentioned that I can think of, which we know has been difficult to do in previous years and is said all the time, is obviously driver transfers, and even just like I've mentioned it before, just try and possibly have young drivers come up, because obviously they have the well, I don't know, I can't say that they have the license in, but it would be a lot easier to get the license in for young drivers that are already tied to a team. So for example, have like Pierre Gasly promoted to Red Bull, Giovinazzi to Haas or Sauber or whatever, and apart from that, can't really think of anything else that the license would permit.
No, driver transfers would also be, as well as the added immersion, would also take the game to the next level, because at the moment it's another kind of OCD thing, seeing Kimi Räikkönen still at Ferrari 9 years down the line when he's well over, like, almost 45. He would be 47. It's just totally unrealistic, and I don't care what anyone else says, how unrealistic it is or not. I think Codemasters should definitely try as hard as they can, once again with the new owners, to try and persuade them to at least allow young drivers into the field. Maybe not like Alonso to Mercedes or Hamilton to Ferrari. Nothing as complex as that. Just, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Ollie Rowland and GP2, F2 is what it's called now. I suppose that's another thing as well, another minor thing, not something I'd be too bothered about being implemented, but it is having Formula 3 and Formula 2 in the game. Yeah. But I suppose at the end of the day, it's a Formula 1 game, is what the title of it is. They'd have to probably change the actual, just the title of the game overall, because it's not just F1 now, it's GP2. Sorry, I'll call it GP2 again. Formula 2 and Formula 3. Hang on, it's GP3, isn't it? I've had a mare
GP3.
here. Yeah, GP3 and F2. but I think if you were to add those in, again, licensing would be an issue for Codemasters, and also it would take away the main point of the game, which is Formula 1.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think that just about concludes the talk on career mode. We pretty much covered everything on that. And that now brings us on to, again, pretty integral part of the game, which is the handling. So, yeah, this year, big overhaul of the handling due to, you know, the change in regulations in F1. And for any people who played the beta, they will know that that was obviously a big focus of that, was to improve the handling. My initial thoughts on the handling, obviously I've played the game for a couple of weeks now. Literally for me, 100% hands down, best handling model there's been on an F1 game. You can tell they've put a lot of time and effort into it. Obviously it helps with the new regulations that the cars are just a lot more planted. But for me, 2015 and 2016, just not enjoyable to play. Way too much wheel spin on the cars to handle. Just not really enjoyable cars at all. But this year feel a lot better. Feel as if you can get a lot more in the zone. Just hook up a good lap and just a lot more enjoyable for me. Yeah. So Matt, thoughts on that?
I think also, once you hook up a lap, it's so rewarding on this game. The only thing I would argue though about the handling, I agree with everything Joe said. I think it's, obviously with these cars this year, very planted through the corners. It's very nice to drive, quite easy to get the hang of. But a crucial word I said there, easy. I think if anything, I think Joe, you brought this up in the beta when you were testing it. If anything, the handling is slightly too easy.
Yeah.
For myself, I've actually managed to have all assists off, and I'm actually coping quite well. For example, I've never had traction control off on an F1 game, and I've managed to do it for this game. And to be honest, I'm not finding it as much of a challenge. I think that's maybe because with the engine and the sort of gearbox where you've got to be very careful through the corners with lifting and coasting. So, obviously I'm not getting on the throttle straight away out of a corner. So that might be why I'm finding it slightly easier. But no, once you hook up a good lap, and I think also being able to push the car to its limits throughout the entirety of the race without the tyres really going off the cliff.
Yeah, that is
one thing they programmed very well is that I think in a China race for me in career mode, like I've been on medium tyres for 14, 15 laps. On F1 2015, F1 2016, those tyres would be completely dead and the AI behind would be catching me up. In fact, if anything, I was pulling away from Perez, the car behind, and closing in on Verstappen, still setting personal best lap times with, a lap to go despite being on the tyres for a good 14, 15 laps. So they've really mastered the tyre wear and handling on this game. If anything, perhaps up the challenge a little bit, but I'd say that's too much of a risk because in the past when Codemasters decide to fiddle with the settings, the handling settings, it's kind of messed a few things up. So if I were them, just leave it as it is. It's absolutely fine. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Your point on China there, this is the first year for me where I've actually sort of enjoyed racing around China. In the past, it's like you do 4 or 5 laps on the soft tyres and they just completely go off. Whereas this year, a lot better. I believe you've got super softs around there as well.
Yes.
And then tracks like Spain as well, which has been like
nice to drive.
Horrible tyre wear in previous years, is one of my favourite tracks actually to drive on this year's game. So yeah, they've really got that right, and yeah, just makes it a lot more enjoyable to play. You don't want to be spending all your time sort of managing the wheel spin and trying to just control the car. Sometimes you just want to jump on and be able to play it, which is good. So. Yeah, not too much really else to say about the handling, something which doesn't need too much working on. So that brings us now on to the AI. So, this year I believe they've changed them slightly.
Yes.
But on the whole, I'd say pretty similar to 2016. They make a few more mistakes. Noticeable how many lockups they make. Sometimes they can just go ploughing into the side of you when they make a lockup, which is very annoying. But... yeah, I think I don't know, maybe a bit of a step forward, but I don't know about you, Matt, but I've found that I'm being overtaken a lot less by the AI. Is it same for you?
Well, one thing, a few notes I've written down here from basically when I've been throughout my playing time on F1 2017. I do think the AI, they have taken a step forward, Codemasters, with the AI, with the programming of them, but I feel like they're a lot more ballsy when they're battling you. I feel like on previous F1 games, they backed out quite frequently, more often than not. However, on this game, they can stay side by side with you and they wouldn't back off quite as easily. I'm going to talk about my career mode again. I had a situation in Canada where I got pole in a Toro Rosso, which was quite unbelievable, by 2.5 tenths. On lap 1, on the back straight, heading into the final chicane to get to the Wall of Champions, I was side by side with Bottas. He was on the outside, I was on the inside defending the lead. So, and we were sort of level with each other. Bottas realistically should have backed up as I was on the inside. He didn't. He went over the curb and just ploughed straight into me, put me in the wall, somehow didn't retire. I just had front wing damage, and I think I recovered to P5 thanks to retirements from some of the leaders. One of those leaders was Bottas, so that's karma for you. But no, I do feel the AI are just a lot more aggressive on this game. And,
yeah, I agree.
And I do agree with the lockups, although the lockups do just seem a bit scripted sometimes. They're just double lockups. It's just... I'll be honest, you don't really see it that much with these drivers at the moment on it, in real life, making that many mistakes. But, you know, I'm not going to complain about it. On your point about the AI overtaking a lot less...
I guess that's possibly down to the
slipstream. Yeah, that's the point I was going to bring up, the whole slipstream effect. I do think, obviously, that's been toned down to a reasonable level. I still think that it is quite easy to overtake. I think it's a little bit unrealistic compared to real life, but I don't think they can tone it down that much. Otherwise, the game would just be totally dead and boring. I mean, Australia,
we don't want it like real life.
Australia, I was very concerned because my race was very boring, and it did worry me slightly that we were going to see, you know, no action in these races, you know, throughout career mode. But thankfully, it was just the fact that it's Australia and Melbourne is impossible to overtake, and the dirty air is more prominent than ever. But in terms of the AI overtaking me, I suppose in Bahrain I had a situation where my ICE was quite worn and my tyres were pretty dead as well. And I had three cars behind me, I think Magnussen, Stroll and Sainz, all trying to overtake me. I was defending points. I was in P9 at this point, you know, fighting for my life. And they were going sort of side by side with me on the straight, but I was always able to outbrake them and kind of just sort of, you know, fend them off. That was one situation where the AI didn't sort of, you know, they weren't ballsy, they weren't aggressive enough, they were too gentlemanlike in that particular situation. It also, I think, depends on the track. I think Bahrain, the AI, it's very good because you can have loads of side-by-side moments with them in Bahrain, but more often than not, they don't seem to make the overtakes around there for whatever reason. But on other tracks, I've seen, like, Spain, you know, crazily, and also China, they seem to make overtakes left, right and centre. So, yeah, I suppose mainly it's down to the slipstream effect, but also around certain tracks they are still too gentlemanlike, a bit too conservative.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Also, one other thing which I've just thought of about the AI, on lap 1, still probably for me a little bit too conservative.
Yeah, I don't think there's much they can do about that, because if you make them any more aggressive than what they already are, there's going to be so many crashes at turn 1. It's just something that unfortunately they can't avoid, and something as we as players have to kind of almost just go down to their level, sort of just take it a bit cautious, just so it's not unrealistic. We don't make up about 10 positions at the start, which is what happens more often than not. The one thing I've got this in a couple of races is when you're going side by side with the driver into turn 1 at like lap 1, turn 1. You tend to have most of the drivers who are obviously on the racing line, and then sometimes you can sort of be battling with another driver off the racing line. That other driver also will tend to just dive down the inside unrealistically, so that's a little bit strange, but again, can't really complain because it's good to obviously see that little bit of aggression. But yeah, that's just one thing that I did note. But overall, any more points on the AI? I will comment a few more. I think also the amount of failures we're getting this year in career mode races, I think it's at a reasonable level. It's not totally unrealistic. We're getting, I mean, I tend to average sort of about 2 or 3 retirements each race.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
One thing I do find a little bit strange though is how yellow flags seem to come out before the AI driver actually retires, because I've checked the replay before, and the yellow flags have come out, yet there's no smoke coming from the car that is about to retire. So it almost just seems like the game seems to predict the retirements before they actually happen, before the car pulls off the side. But no, Australia, I had quite a few retirements. Canada, what I do notice is that more often than not, and it's a little bit unrealistic, is that the leaders, the Ferraris and Mercedes, seem to have retirements a lot more.
Ferrari especially, I've found.
Than the Saubers, for example. Yeah, I've had Raikkonen and Vettel retiring. I've had Hamilton and Bottas retiring. Yeah, as I said, more than the like Saubers and McLarens even, for God's sake. I honestly do feel that the Mercedes and Ferraris and Mike Rimmett have had more DNFs than McLaren Hondas, but it's just not realistic, you know, to real life at all. But I suppose it just, you know, adds a bit of spice to the race. I will not complain about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty much concludes AI, I think. And next up, we're going to go to another core game mode, which is online. So, yeah, I think all of you guys will know, if you've played the game, that there are some issues, some quite big issues with online, or at least there were early on. Where, and if you've watched one of my videos as well, you'll know that it's the case of the disqualification glitch. So basically, if you go into a lobby, you know, you just drive the race as normal, and as soon as you cross the finish line, you got disqualified. Fortunately, they've actually patched that, which is, well, obviously good. But still, I think the general online experience still needs a lot of work, which is really frustrating because we've been saying that for so many years now. The one big change they've made this year is, like, they've got rid of the hopper lobbies or whatever they were called, but they've sort of replaced it with a similar thing. So
I don't get that.
Yeah, exactly.
I will comment on it a little bit. So, essentially, if you're not aware, it's a public matchmaking system, which they tend to have on really big games, like really big games, which have so many more players, you know, per day. And for F1, it basically, I don't know what it's like on PC. I mean, admittedly, I haven't played online that much because I find it too... I mean, it's almost like a chore to find a lobby, because the slider, essentially, the lower half of the slider is shorter race distances, the upper half is longer race distances. I obviously go to the shorter half because I want to just do like a sprint race, like a free 5-lap sprint race, which we used to have on F1 2013, F1 2012. I get into a lobby... There's, well, eventually, after about, you know, minutes of trying to find one, of about 6-7 people, so I think, okay, I'll go into that. The big problem at the start, I'm not sure if they've patched this now, is that the settings appeared to be fixed. So certain assists would be off, the weather would be fixed on, like, light rain, the track you couldn't change either. I suppose that was what it was like on sprint mode, so the track being fixed isn't such a big issue. But as soon as I got into the race, essentially, it was within a second of me actually getting off the line. I was already taken out and into the wall, and I was just thinking... I mean, I know there's nothing Codemasters can do about that, but it is attempting, you know... Because I haven't seen this online ranking system come into play, because I haven't done many races yet. I'm not actually sure what it is. Like, I don't know, Joe, if you could sort of clear that up. What is the ranking system like in this game? Is it 1 to 50 like before, or is it...
Well, the Codemasters have literally said nothing about it, which doesn't help, because you know, you think online, probably one of the most they want to promote to try and, especially the longevity of the game, improve that. From what I've heard, it's sort of like a prestige system. So for the it sort of goes up in levels. So depending on how many races you win, so say you win a race, you go up to level 1 on that. And then when you go up to 10, you sort of prestige and something like that. It also depends on how many races you've completed, how many miles you've driven, just stuff like that. But yeah, nobody has really driven it enough to know what happens, and Codemasters haven't said anything about it, which I think would be good, because that sort of motivates. If they clear up, if they say, right, this is what happens, then people think, oh, okay, right, I know what's happening, I'll go into it and try it. But
admittedly, I haven't actually played the online that much. It was just that one race I was telling you about there, where I got taken out within a second of starting. But as I said, it's just too much of a chore to find a lobby, and it's just like it's fixed on 5 laps, or even one-shot quali, 5 laps. It's just like, I don't want to do this. I just want to, you know, go back to what it was like on F1 2012, a 3-lap sprint race where you just, you know, there would be noobs. Of course, there's going to be terrible drivers in there, but it was just still so much fun. All the chaos that always ensued in those sort of races, and the fun that I used to have on online, it's just a distant memory, to be quite honest with you. But as I said, the public matchmaking system it's absolutely pointless for a game as small as F1. That's all I'm going to say about that. And yeah, online, again, I saw a video earlier on today of an online race where there were cars basically jump starting before the others. That glitch is still there, as it has been for the last few years now. It's something that we go through every year, and the fact is the online was actually tested in the beta.
Yep.
What they needed to have done is well, I don't know if I think you might have pointed this out as well, Joe, but I agree with you. Do an open beta. Don't be so stingy and keep it to 300 people. That's not going to be. That's not a representative amount to the, to who's going to be on day to day. Certainly within like the first couple of months. So I think Codemasters only have themselves to blame. But I think honestly, I'm going to say right now, before they start, as I said, adding more immersion to career mode, perhaps implementing another new big game mode. Sort out the online, because for me, I'm not too bothered, but for so many people, it's why they buy and play the F1 game. So just sort it out. Simple as that. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, because now, even in the last few years, ever since 2015, really, I'd say, you've seen people moving over to the likes of Assetto Corsa, R Factor. It's just turning people away, and already those people are sort of buying other games and playing online on the other games, and then they're taking a look at F1 and seeing that there's no change and think, well, why bother going back to that? So there's such a big audience, especially now that obviously they're starting the whole eSports thing.
Yeah,
like you've got to get online right if you're going to be doing a big eSports sort of like pay to win event, like money on the line. They're gonna have to fix that. And as I said, open beta would be massively up for that. Even if they still have the 2017 cars in, 2017 handling, 2017 cars, but just say, right, we just want to test this for online for next year. I'd quite like to see that, and it would be very beneficial to the game, in my opinion. So yeah, that's all I can really say on that. But I think that just about concludes online. I think we've pretty much said it all. Yeah,
online, I think at the moment it's just these recurring issues that prop up every single year that continually let the game down. And I know it's probably so much harder than what it looks. I completely understand that if anyone from Codemasters is watching this, but it's just something that you need to prioritise and just
100%.
Just at the end of the day, do your best. But sometimes your best isn't enough, and you do need to go to that extra level and put perhaps more staff into the online development, because
especially now they've sort of mastered career mode
exactly, and because you're starting to get involved with esports, like Formula 1 are officially starting to go down that route now. The F1 game, the official F1 game, the online needs to be up to scratch. It's as simple as that.
So as I said, that pretty much concludes online. Just briefly, I wanted to sort of touch on championships mode. Matt, I know you haven't played this, so you can only sort of give what you've heard from myself. But basically, the championships mode, they've got classic events, and they also have modern 2017 events, and there are some really fun ones in there. So the double header event is one that springs to mind, a little bit like a GP2 weekend, where you do a 25% race with one-shot quali, and then the grid for that determines the grid for race 2, which is a 5-lap race, reverse grid, reduced points. Just something that's a little bit fun. You can sort of charge your way through the grid, and anything with a reverse grid, people it just causes carnage, and that's really good fun.
Yes.
Although would like to see that done with a custom calendar, because at the moment it's literally, I think it's China, Italy, US, and I can't think where the other track is. But it's 4 races. It doesn't really take too long. Whereas if people could do a custom calendar with that'd be really good fun, and maybe even do the whole season with that, or possibly an F2 GP2 calendar, something like that. Also in championships, another one I really like is the Sprint Championship, which again is just reverse grids, quick races. You can just sort of jump on that and have a bit of fun, which is good for the casual player, and would like to see that expanded in future years, hopefully. But yeah, as I said, Matt, you haven't really.
No, I mean, I'll comment on it a little bit. The fact is, I think the worrying part is I wasn't even aware of this game mode.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd obviously seen it in the menus. I just assumed it was some sort of online thing, and it just involved the classic cars. The fact that Codemasters did not even promote this game mode.
Yeah.
They did well. They might have mentioned it, but they didn't specify exactly what it was. As far as I'm aware, I might be wrong, and I might have missed out on a blog post. But it's again going back to Codemasters marketing. I'll go a little bit off topic here. Their marketing for this game, again, it might be down to FOM being a little bit funny about when they're releasing their trailers and news. But the fact I wasn't aware of this game mode, and from the sounds of it, it's actually quite huge, because I feel that is the sort of thing that can attract casual players. It's like little one-off fun game modes, you know, like a reverse grid, like reduced points, 5-lap sprints to try and get, you know, as high up the field as possible, and Mercedes starting at the back, Sauber starting at the front. It just sounds so much fun. And you know what? As soon as Joe told me this before we started recording, I just said to myself, I'm gonna go and record now. Well, not going to record it, sorry, but you know, go and play it almost immediately after doing this.
Yeah.
But no, it sounds very fun, and I think it'll attract the casual players as well as maybe the hardcore players as well. Certainly, I will give it a go. Joe's already played it and has thoroughly enjoyed it so far. But I do feel the fact that I wasn't aware of it before Joe mentioned it to me, because one more note I had down was for there to be another game mode that would allow sort of more YouTube content, but also in order to attract casual players. I made that note before not even realising what Championships actually was, and Championships actually covers that. You know, people could make perhaps videos from it, and they can also, casual players can also pop on and play it as well and enjoy it. But again, Codemasters, definitely one thing that I've kind of, you know, a bone to pick with them is definitely the way they've promoted and marketed this game, because it was quite poor how the gameplay was released only a couple of weeks before the game came out. It didn't do the best in terms of maybe, you know, the one-off player that might just decide to buy the game for the sake of it might think, oh, this looks quite cool, why not I buy this for this year? And again, the fact they didn't promote all the game modes and the news itself didn't come out till quite late on wasn't great overall.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it needs a bit more promotion. Yeah. And like you say, it's about attracting the casual players, because
that's the crucial thing.
Not everybody wants to do like a 20 race career mode or whatever, you know, or like 10 seasons of 20 races. That's 200 races.
I know.
Like, it's a lot to complete a full career mode, and even like myself and Matt, we're only on Baku at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
and still that's doing like pretty much one race a day. That's averaging almost. So and yeah, like the game, it's not dying down yet. I mean,
no.
After a month or so, that's when people start to, like, obviously go onto other games. But like, if you do one race a day for, let's say, a month, you've still only got through a season and a half of career mode. You know, you've not even scratched the surface of it, really. Whereas, you know, if you add these championship, like little mini games almost, then yeah, I think you're gonna attract more players. But yeah, certainly. Finally, we're just gonna touch on. We've already touched on the eSports thing. But yeah, we're just going to give a few little opinions on the event mode. So at the moment, there is a event around Monza where you have to drive as Sergio Perez. I believe there's about 4 or 5 laps left in the race, and you are in P7, and you have to get up into a podium position, but you're on quicker tyres. And yeah, you get sort of bonus scores for completing it, having assists off. You are allowed assists, but you get sort of bonuses for that. Clean laps, fastest laps, just all things like that, which pieces together to your final score. And obviously, people who are at the top of the leaderboards get to go to the semi-finals in London, which are taking place next month. So, Matt, do you think this is a positive step? And you're a big fan of the fact that they've implemented this?
Yes, I do think the event game mode, because I think they did have something similar before on F1 2015, maybe F1 2016. Yeah, I think they did. But I believe it was only exclusive to the PS4, which I didn't quite understand at the time. But no, I personally haven't yet completed the Sergio Perez one. I'm going to do that later on today, probably after this podcast. I've been working the last 2 days, so haven't had an opportunity to delve into that one just yet. I did the Max Verstappen one. And yeah, I really quite enjoyed that one. Obviously, I completed the challenge. I think over 4,000 players were on the leaderboard on the Xbox side. Might be more now. And I was in the top 200 somehow. And I was just like, how the hell have I done that? And then I checked everyone's AI difficulty and I was like, oh, yep. 65, 45, 35, 0, 2, 1. Yeah, but no, I think definitely... I'm still not too sure linking these event game modes into the eSports scene. I mean, I think it's a very positive step that they are now delving into eSports, FOM and Codemaster with the Formula 1 game. But is the event a true representation of how quick people really are? I think the best thing would have been to do like a time trial lap around Monza.
Or just like a mix between the two. Maybe do that event, but also do a time trial as well. You know, take people from each one, like they've done with the McLaren World's Fastest Gamer, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
just, you know, get a mix of people, possibly.
But no, I think overall, yeah, I agree with what Joe says there. I have no complaints. I enjoy the event game mode, and to be honest, apart from online, this is a pretty well polished game, and I don't think there's many negative points to pick up upon. So yeah, I think that will be. That's about all I have to say on the game. The event game mode, very, very positive, good implementation. You know, it's something to sort of take you away from career mode, I suppose, and the championships. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say really on the event game mode.
Yeah. So yeah, that just about concludes everything that we've sort of gone through. So I guess now it's just sort of a parting thought, I guess. Maybe giving a rating on the game as well.
I've actually written down a rating here out of
10. So Matt, I'll go over to you first. If you just want to maybe recap the positives, the negatives, and a final score, that'll be great.
Okay, so the key positives from this game: career mode, you know, more expansive than ever with the R&D system. The AI on this game are quite ballsy. They have made a small step forward with them. Obviously, the major down point is the online. The fact that there are still so many recurring issues and it's so difficult to find a lobby and actually just people to play with. The online experience just isn't what it used to be, and it's, you know, it's still something that Codemasters have yet to master. I really, really do like the fact they've implemented the event game mode and also championships game mode, which I wasn't even aware of until 5 minutes before recording this podcast. But no, all these implementations, it attracts, you know, people like myself who I wouldn't class myself as a hardcore. I'd actually class myself as a casual player more than anything. And that sort of game mode just takes me away from career mode. Just do something a little bit fun just to mix it up. Again, there are obviously a few down points. I think the classic events within Career Mode Invitational are a little bit pointless, just not really much depth to them. You know, you could just really skip over them and it wouldn't really affect your relationships sort of within the career mode with teams, managers, things like that. And yeah, I think my overall rating, based on everything that we've discussed in this podcast, if the online was better, this score would be probably two scores higher. I'm going to give this game a 7 out of 10. People might think that's a bit harsh, but I think the online, because it's so tragically bad, means that it'll go from a 9 to a 7. If they improve the online considerably, it'll go to an 8 and a 9 easily out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. So yeah, I'll give my final thoughts now. So positives for me, main positive is probably the handling, because the last 2 years, maybe even the last 3, you probably include 2014 in that as well. The reason why I just haven't played a lot of, like, I've probably almost played as much of 2017 as I did 2015 for like the whole year. Just because, yes, it was a very broken game, but it just wasn't enjoyable for the handling for me either.
No.
Similar to 2016, obviously there were mods out there for the handling, which is what I used in the sort of second half of the year, which is what made it a lot more playable for me. Whereas this year, from the outset, handling really, really fun. And yeah, that's the main positive for me. Obviously, career mode, as Matt said, a lot more depth to it. R&D gives you a really good representation of what the weekend ahead is going to be like. AI, a little bit of an improvement on 2016, but on 2016 I thought they were still pretty good anyway. But yeah, the downfall for me is obviously the online. Just needs completely reworking. I mean, we're not even 2 weeks into the game and people have stopped playing online and probably won't play it for the rest of the year unless you're a league racer and they do fix it. But yeah, need to nail it from the release next year and actually get people hooked on it. Whereas now people see that it's broken and probably won't touch it for the rest of the year. No, for the event, really, really good to see him implement this, but I think it could take him maybe a while to sort of master it because of the online is so broken, and obviously the whole esports thing relies on a functioning online. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes this year, and hopefully it's something they can build on next year. And that means that overall, I'll give it a little bit higher than Matt. I'll go for a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, all right.
I think the last 2 years.
Where's that 0.5 come from?
Yeah. I think the career mode is slightly improved. Probably gives it an extra. That's probably what gives it the extra half a rating from me, because I think that 2016 they made a massive improvement on the career mode, but the general game just didn't really interest me, and sort of stopped playing it after not too long. Whereas this year, a lot more hooks on it. Seem to have mastered that. Obviously, the handling's a lot better, but still, as we've mentioned, there's still a lot to work on. Yeah. So yeah,
don't get complacent, Codemasters, by any means. There are still things to improve on in every game, and even career mode, as we've mentioned in this video, there are still things that can be done better, and new implementations as well.
Exactly. So I'm glad that we've waited a couple of weeks to do this, because obviously you see a lot of game reviews, like game reviewers have just done like 1 or 2 days on it, and you don't really get sort of a full idea of like the glitches,
career mode,
stuff like
good,
that. Yeah,
online, bad, end of video, 4
Yes.
out of 10, goodbye.
So yeah, we thought we'd wait a couple of weeks, and hopefully we've given sort of an accurate representation. And yeah, then that just about concludes it. Thanks very much for being here today, Matt. Been a good chat.
Yep, no worries. Good to get thoughts off my chest about F1 2017. Overall, I think it's a good game. I think I've been quite balanced in my positive points and also negative points as well. Hopefully, people have enjoyed this and have agreed with me, maybe even disagree with me. All thoughts and comments, put them down below. Always like to hear from people, differing opinions. But yeah, been a pleasure being on today.
Good stuff. So yeah, if you have made it this far, do leave a like and comment down below, and also subscribe if you're new. And until my next video, do take care. Bye bye.